$10 million gotta hide to say.
We gon' go live, we gon' go live, yup. We gon' go live, we gon' go live.
Gage Schultz here, reporting live about how Benford's Law came to be. Today we will be talking about the origin of Benford's Law, why Benford's Law is used, limitations of Benford's Law on external and internal audit, the application of Benford's Law, our earthware example, and our final conclusion to tie it all together.
Whoop-de-whoop, now it's Coop. The original creator of Benford's Law is Frank Benford, who was a physicist at GE in the 1930s. He first hypothesized the distribution that now carries his name after noticing that the first few pages of the logarithm books he owned were significantly more worn than the later pages. After seeing this, he made the decision to investigate over 20,000 numbers from various sources and define the distribution in a research paper he later published in 1938. In that paper, he found that about 30% of the numbers investigated began with the digit 1, 18% began with 2, and so on, with about 5% beginning with 9. Benford's Law is used by taking all of the data available in the audit relating to the accounting data set in question. This kind of digital analysis is much more accurate and reliable in large data sets than in smaller ones. So, in order to avoid accusing honest companies of fraud, Benford's Law is used if the company has many different numbers.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Guess who's back, not dressed in black? It's Gage, and I'm here to share with you the limitations of Benford's Law. Benford's Law won't work on small samples. If you examine a bank account with 20 checks for the year, your sample isn't likely to follow the predicted pattern that Benford's Law portrays. You need to have a large sample size to make this test work. The test typically won't capture a fraudster who manipulates one or very few transactions. What does this mean? Some will ask me, and this is what I'll say. Well, you won't catch a guy who wrote a check to himself, but you might catch a guy who goes through a series of transactions and manipulates the billings or payments enough to upset the predicted pattern. There are other limitations too. Not all data sets can be tested, such as telephone numbers, social security numbers, and account numbers generally, because they will not be expected to follow Benford's Law. These types of numbers do not conform to Benford's Law because they are not uniformly distributed, naturally occurring digits.
If young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot.
Knick-knack paddywhack, give a dog a bone, here to tell you about my role as an external auditor. I conducted an external audit for a medical center by testing the office supplies account. Through the use of Benford's Law, I analyzed the first digit for the amount on each check, ensuring that it conformed to the distribution for his law. All of the observed numbers, except for the number 2 and 7, fell within the conforming range. And since it did not fall within the conforming range, another analysis was performed and indicated that there was no fraudulent activity and that all the transactions were legitimate. However, when I tested the second account pertaining to insurance check refunds, it was found that all the numbers were significantly different except for the number 2 and 7. When testing this account to see whether fraudulent activity was present, it was uncovered that there was a financial officer who were creating fake companies to send these refund checks to. It was found that close to $80,000 had been sent to those fake companies. Clearly, Benford's Law was used effectively in this audit. By testing the lead numbers to see their frequency and whether the distribution was too high, it was found that a financial officer was stealing thousands of dollars. Without Benford's Law, this may have never been found, and the company would have no idea where the money was going.
For our internal audit example, we chose to do Earthware, the company that we have been working with in class. So to start, we have Earthware Company's Physical Inventory Compilation Report. First, we are going to add a column to the right of the extension column that is the count. So the function we are going to use for this is the left function grabbing the extension number, comma 1. This is going to pull the first number that is given in the extension. Now we're going to drag that formula all the way down so it hits all of the different product types. Now we're going to create a pivot table with this data. So we need to highlight all of the data and then go to the Data tab and click Pivot Table. Now we have to change the format so that it gets the information that we need. So we want to go down to count and drag that to the row labels as well as drag it to the values. Now we have the exact distribution of leading digits 1 through 9. We then make a sample rate column and a Benford's rate column so that we can compare the numbers. We grab the total of number 1 and divide it by the total altogether. This gives us the distribution. Now we are going to use Benford's rate. So we're going to use the log10 function and grab the number that we wish to use. To start, it would be 1. Then we are going to divide that number by the total and add 1 to it. Now we have Benford's distribution. We drag that down and we get the different distribution at every level. Now we are going to take the sample rate and Benford's rate and make them into a column chart. This will show the different distributions. Uh-oh, what do you know? It shows a uniform distribution. This means that the test worked and that there is no fraudulent information.
Go tell your friends about it. Go tell your friends about it.
Hey Gage. What's up, Coop?
Hey, Gage.
Hey Nick. You guys want some pizza?
Yeah.
Love some.
I'll set her down.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Hey, so what do you remember from my section?
So at the beginning of the presentation, I remember you talked about how Frank Benford created Benford's Law, and he found it out by looking at old log books. And what he realized is that from 1 down to 9, the distribution goes like this. So it starts at about 30% and then gets to about 5% when you get down to 9. And this was pretty much how he detected fraud and misstatements.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Thanks. So, Nick, what are some of the limitations that I talked about in Benford's Law?
So one limitation to Benford's law is having a small sample set. Because for Benford's law to properly work, you need a large data set of numbers from which to test. Oh, and fun fact, Benford's law does not work on Social Security numbers as well as your telephone. So Coop, what did you learn from my section?
So when working with Benford's Law in internal and external audit, you have to take a large data set that they use and test the distribution of the numbers that Benford found, and then from there you can find the obscurities and then the fraudulent activity of the company.
Nice.
Hey, we made it.